Good evening, at 7:30. I'm going to call to order the November 14th, 2018 regular council meeting. Would the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. Amrhein.
Here.
Mr. DeLeone.
Here.
Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Kuhar.
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Here.
Ms. Shaffer.
Here.
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Turner.
Here.
And Ms. Wallach.
Here.
Opening remarks, Tracy.
Nope, I don't have anything.
Pledge allegiance.
Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need the motion for the minutes, somebody?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular council, special city council, and public hearing of October 17th.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a, did we receive the minutes from the, are they coming
For what?
for the, I'm sorry, for the regular council meeting on October 17th?
They're the first thing in the packet.
Yeah.
I know that. Right.
You don't have them?
They're probably emailed Gwen.
No, that's fine. I don't have them in this packet here. That's all. I don't think
All
I
right.
received them.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Two abstentions? Three. Tracy, did you abstain too?
No.
Oh, just do that. All right. Further? Yeah. Did we do them all?
Yep.
Okay. Communications, audience participation, communication, I must read my statement here. While the law does not require constant provide time for the public comments, we have historically invited the public to make comment, and we appreciate their input. This is the time when residents and others can comment on matters that concern them. However, we will not engage in any debate, and as President Council, I reserve the right to end any public comments that is destructive, embarrassing, harassing, or otherwise objectively. We ask that you, when you come to the podium, speak your name, address clearly, and your comments within 3 minutes. Anybody sign in?
Peter Kierstead.
Name and address, sir, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Peter Hans Kierstead of 1039 Davie Avenue, Kent, Ohio. I'm the president of the Association for World History, and I have 3 of my loyal underlings with me today. Our vice president and treasurer, Evan, who's nephew to the law director, and then our undersecretary, Ben, and assistant to the president, Megan. And so we were planning a trip to Canada this summer, but we rescheduled that to the spring next year. But I wrote to the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario expressing goodwill from Kent, and so her office replied saying, oh, we'll send gifts to Kent. I don't know why they couldn't send them to the city of Kent directly. They send them to me, but I have, it's a flag and a book and a bunch of stuff. So, oh, I should point out, there's no governor in Ontario. Canada has one Governor General to represent the Queen. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Canadian Constitution, they've got one Governor General who represents the Queen at the federal level, and then Governor General appoints a Lieutenant Governor for each province. So this is Elizabeth Dowdeswell, who was the Queen's representative for Ontario. So I have him here. Can I
Give them to the clerk.
set him down?
Yep. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your effort. Is there further?
No. That's it.
Written communications?
We have a Planning Commission agenda and staff report from November 6th, received on October 30th. The Sustainability Commission meeting agenda for November 13th, and the minutes of October 2nd, received November 6th. The Health Board agenda for November 13th, minutes of October 10th, and the October statistical report was received November 8th. And we also have a liquor license transfer request that was received November 6th for 1333 Water Street, Inc., doing business as Kent Fuel and Mini Mart, located at 1333 South Water Street, from Kent Fuel and Mini Mart, Inc., same address, 1337 St. Water Street, and Chief Lee had no objections.
Move to return with no comment.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there further?
No.
All right, city manager report, Jack.
I move this, items 1 through 10 on the city manager's report.
Second.
Any discussion? Being none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there further, Mr. Roller?
No, that's it. Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we get into standing committees. Committee of the whole, there's nothing. Community development, there's nothing. Finance committee, there are no minutes, but there are actions.
I'll move the 4 actions if no one else wants them
Second.
separated. Do you want
Three.
Three.
okay, I'll move actions 1 and 2.
Second.
Eh,
Or, no, just
Is there discussion, Tracy?
No.
Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'll move action 3.
Second.
Any discussion on action 3? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-120 in title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2017-156, the current appropriation ordinance passed December 13th, 2017, as amended by ordinance number 2018-33, passed February 21st, 2018, as amended by ordinance number 2018-38, passed March 31st, 2018, 21st, 2018, as amended by ordinance number 2018-51, passed April 18th, 2018, as amended by ordinance number 2018-71, passed June 20th, 2018, as amended by ordinance number 2018-92, passed August 15th, 2018, and as amended by ordinance number 2018-103, passed September 19th, 2018, so as to increase appropriations in Fund 001 General and Fund 126 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and so as to decrease appropriations in Fund 208 Stormwater and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
And Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-120 passes.
Okay, would the clerk read draft number 2018-121 in title only?
Draft number 2018-121, a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into an agreement between Main Street Kent and the city of Kent to grant Main Street Kent up to $70,000 to promote economic development and revitalization to the city of Kent and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
And Mr. Farrar?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar? Resolution number 2018-121 passes.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, read draft number 2018-122 in title only.
Draft number 2018-122, a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept a grant in the amount of $72,140 from the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPAC, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms.
Oh,
Schaefer?
I'm sorry.
Is there, when's the time I can ask a question about it?
Adoption.
At adoption? Okay.
There's nothing under suspension.
Okay.
Ms.
Yes.
Schaefer? Okay. Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second. Second. Are there any questions on adopting this ordinance?
Am I allowed to ask somebody besides the,
You got a question
us?
on it? We're
Does
gonna-
anybody, can anybody just explain what we can use this grant for exactly? I couldn't really understand.
It is energy conservation monies, so there's sort of a range of project eligibility. We don't have to pick the project yet, we just have to basically lock in the money by December 1st, and then we can either look at the existing capital plan. There's, I know Jim and Dave Coffey we had already started talking about 2 or 3 different projects that could be eligible. So it can be stuff that we're already going to do, like roof improvements at the West Side Fire Station. It could be something new, something like you guys talk about with solar or something like that. So we'll come back when we kind of come through our prioritization, what we would suggest, and you'll have to authorize it at that time, so you can have that conversation at that time.
Thank you.
It's also something in your packet.
Yeah, I read it.
All right.
It's kind of,
Anybody else have discussion on adopting this? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
And Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-122 passes.
Okay, is there further, Mr. DeLeone?
That is all.
Health and Public Safety, Mr. Amrhein.
Yes, I'd like to move the 2 actions recommended.
There's also no minutes yet.
Second.
Okay. Action, second. Is there any discussion on the actions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-123 in title only?
Draft number 2018-123, an ordinance enacting Section 521.18 of the Kent Codified Ordinances titled Sweeping Leaves and Grass into Gutters Prohibited and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
And Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Is there any question, discussion on adoption? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
And Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-123 passes.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-124 in title only?
Draft number 2018-124, a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter into a trail crossing lighting agreement between the City of Kent and Kent State University to jointly install roadway lights at the trail esplanade crossings of Willow and Lincoln Streets and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner. And Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
And Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-124 passes.
Okay, thank you. Is there further, Mr. Amrhein? None.
That's all.
There's nothing under land use, streets and sidewalks.
Yes, I'd like to move that the
Wait a
action
minute, there's
listed.
no minutes.
No minutes, that's what.
All right, now the action.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the action that's recommended be approved.
Second.
Any discussion on the action? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-125 in title only?
Draft number 2018-125, an ordinance amending Section 935.13 of the Kent Codified Ordinances to delete certain language and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
And Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
And Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-125 passes.
Okay, thank you, that's it. Special committee reports, is there anything for special committee? Unfinished business, anything? Unfinished business. Items need council action or referral, is there anybody? Tracy?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that we send a thank you note to the vice governor or whatever of the, Ontario, wherever. Yes, there,
Lieutenant Governor.
yes, to that place.
Make sure, Peter, make sure the clerk has the address or something, we'll get something out to him. All right, unless we don't already have it. Go ahead.
I'm not done. And way back when, I think it was back in 2006 or something, when Main Street was first being formed, a company from Colorado came out to check out our river and see that we could design some things for the river. And they were not going to charge that much money, so I would like to revisit that and see if we could maybe make that a reality. So I'd like to put it into committee to discuss, or just give it to the administration to look into, or however way it's supposed to be done.
That's your motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrara. Further discussion, Tracy?
Well, I
There's a
think that
company.
there's enough happening downtown now. I think it's time that we should start really utilizing our river. I mean, there's a little bit going on with the kayaks and everything and the canoes, but one end, but this was going to develop the other end and really make it a destination for people to come.
So just from my
Oh.
memory, was that the Whitewater Park report that they did
Yeah.
and the elements of
That's
that?
like that
So we bring that back and kind of,
Yeah, look.
John
look a little more
O'Donnell did a
seriously.
few things initially. He took as far as he could with the money he had, but I'll be happy to, we can bring that into council. Sure.
You have further comment?
No, I think it's a great
Anybody
idea.
else have comment? Gwen? You had
Not
your
not
hand
have
up?
it, new business.
John?
I don't know, this comment, this is needing council's attention.
We didn't get this done yet.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of Tracy's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there further, John?
Yeah, and Dave might have to refresh me on this. Several years ago, I believe we made an agreement with Smithers Oasis that we would give them land on Lake Street, and in return, they had a time frame to which they were supposed to build a facility and put some employees to work there. And just, could you refresh me, are they still within the guidelines of that agreement, or are they kind of lacking and we're supposed to get the land back?
No? And Bridget,
Bridget's
come
got-
on.
Bridget's on the
been
move.
most of the issues between then and now have been continued remediation of portions of the site that we've had to, remember they changed, the state of Ohio changed the regulatory threshold for the vapors that were out there, so it basically made it from a level that we already hit in terms of reducing, but in terms of the future, we could never achieve the updated, so we had to kind of go back and carve out that portion with Smithers, and I don't know where we stand. What's the latest on that?
Basically had to do a land deed restriction that certain activities can't occur where those vapor intrusions are. We actually got everything through the EPA. We got the covenant not to sue and the no further action filed and recorded from the EPA, so that has all been finalized. And I actually just met with the certified professional company that was representing Smithers about a week ago, and they are recommending that everything is fine and that we can go proceed with the purchase agreement. The purchase agreement had already been authorized by council, but now can go forward and be signed.
So what was their time frame?
Next year, right?
Well, the purchase agreement had to be executed within the next year, but the redevelopment of the site, they do have 2 years after the execution of the agreement, 2 to 3 years, actually, I believe it is. So they're right now just looking at what they're going to do. The land use restriction kind of limits how they're going to have to place the building, so it kind of changed things a little bit for them. But they are going to take the site.
So our agreement with them way back when only initiated when a purchase agreement was finalized?
Correct. The purchase, because they were unwilling to execute the purchase agreement until we got the covenant not to sue, because obviously environmental conditions have a legacy associated with it, and that would have been become their issue. So until we had all that done, and we did have a delay because of the change in the Vissel standards. So we did work around that, and we came up with a mechanism that pleased the EPA enough that we were able to get everything recorded and finalized.
And this was just done recently.
In the last few months, but they're certified professionals. Scientists move as slow as attorneys. They had to look through everything in the covenant not to sue approved by the EPA and ensure Smithers that they were okay with the deal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Heidi?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Mary Lang and I are hosting a solar cooperative meeting, inviting a spokesperson from Ohio Sun, which is an advocacy and information or educational organization. It's national, so there's several different Suns. There's a Pennsylvania Sun, there's a or a PA Sun, Sidoti Sun, and I'm just kind of hoping that we have somebody coming from the city of Kent besides council people, because that may be a great way for us to be able to knock the price down for any solar installation by going together with other municipalities to form a co-op. You have to have a different kind of co-op at the city level or municipal level versus homeowners versus like homeowner associations or condominium type of developments. So really it's an informational meeting, and then following that, a couple months later, we'll have a meeting where we actually maybe take some action. So I'm kind of hoping that's December 1st at 11 o'clock. Also inviting other municipalities, especially in Portage County, to join us, and that'll be held at the Kent Free Library.
That's a Monday,
It's a Saturday,
a Saturday.
yeah.
Where's that official notice going to be?
She sent an email out.
Oh, I
Yeah,
haven't-
you
I'm sorry, I
got
haven't
an
seen it.
email, and we're going to
Okay.
probably put it in the paper and a couple other places.
I sent it to
We'll put out a nudge too, so that if you're interested in putting solar on your house and you want to go together with other people, it's a kind of an RFP process, so that you get bidders on your real estate, and you know, if you go together with enough people, you can drive the price down.
Already got solar in my house.
All right.
Yeah.
Roger, you had your hand up?
Gwen was first.
You have your
Mr.
hand
Mayor.
up?
Gwen was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, I'm pleased that Tracy had brought up the river. There must be something about the river lately, because I was about to bring up a motion. I'd like to continue our progress improving the health of the river and subsequently the health of Lake Erie, in particular in light of research demonstrating that certain fertilizers containing phosphorus have been a contributing factor to the algae blooms in Lake Erie. I'd like to make a motion that we ask the Sustainability Commission to review and research practical solutions that the city can take to continue to improve the health of our river.
Second.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Just basically that, as Dave reminded me, that 2019 is the 50th anniversary of the burning of the Cuyahoga River. And in light of the fact that Lake Erie is suffering from these algae blooms, and we're stewards of this river as it passes through our city, and it's a tremendous asset that we value. So I think this is an excellent time to review some ways that perhaps we can strengthen our resolve to continue the health of the river by asking the Sustainability Commission to look into it.
Who seconded?
I did.
Further discussion?
It's a great idea.
Anybody else? Discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now, Roger?
I think it was about 4 years ago when we entertained a lot of interest, and we had people coming in making presentations about the possibility of having a grocery store, the possibility of taking that block that is Water Street and Franklin and that whole square there. And obviously, some things did not happen, some things have happened. We have 2 apartment complexes coming in, but there's a vacant store, the old parts store in the corner has been vacant for almost a year now, I think. There seems to be a stalling out there. And so I entertain a motion, or I could come up with a motion of, I think it would be nice if we could go back and revisit that. And I'm going to blame Harrison, okay? Because on September 29th, when we were on North Water Street and walking North Water Street with the Vetter Block, which was outstanding, by the way, Harrison, wandering around and really looking and really talking with a lot of people about the possibilities of North Water Street, it suddenly dawned on me that there were some issues that'll have to be addressed. We talked about parking issues and how we could reconfigure parking down there. We talked about the types of businesses we'd like to see. Maybe after 4 or 5 years, we had a vision across the street. That vision isn't quite where we thought it was going to be. Maybe it's time to revisit that again and just kind of get an idea. What are we looking at over there? We've talked about the closing of College Avenue possibly and vacating that. And we've had a lot of ideas, but do we have a vision? And the second part of that is, I'd like to see our city prepared just in case, through some miracle, that the new House of Representatives does manage to pass an infrastructure bill, and that those flow-through dollars that will come to the state of Ohio, and then we'll have access to those dollars. If we had a little bit of a vision again. We had a vision. That vision was altered. So I'd like to move that we either throw it back to, I hate to dump it on our administration, so maybe it needs to go to one of our committees to have conversation and get some ideas, just to revisit that again.
Is there a second to his motion?
Second?
Second by Mr. Ferrara. Roger, I hate to ask if there's any
No,
more you could
no,
say, but.
no. I have a lot more to say about static parking and fluid parking.
Garrett?
Well, that was going to be my follow-up comment. It seems the parking issue seems to probably be one of the most relevant things, and if we can get ahead of the parking issue, and I say issue because I don't think it's a problem, because the parking problem is a good problem to have, right?
Right.
So, but if we can get ahead of that, I think we can be in a position to be more proactive than reactive. And I don't want to speak for Roger, but I suspect that's where he's going. And we did talk about the development that's out there on Summit Street at the church and what that looks like. And if we could avoid something like that downtown, would certainly be good. So I'm all in favor of it.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mr. Turner?
Yeah, on the, revisiting the statement of being proactive. And first I wanted to direct my question to the clerk. We were discussing whether or not we could start addressing the seniors issue. I think that had been
You can now.
broached by Mrs.
Long.
Mrs. Long, thank you. But, and I was wondering when we might have an opportunity, even though the idea that I was pressing on that was less about melding together seniors and the parks and new parks and rec facility. And it would be more like a standing committee, which would create an opportunity for the seniors in the community to act proactively, to establish an agenda for them, and how we might be able to facilitate that. I would suspect, not to dump this on Bridget again, but I think it's probably the most appropriate department in the city would be that department that Bridget heads. And if we could start moving in that direction, maybe establishing some type of steering committee, get input from a number of the senior groups or those people who impact a social agenda for seniors. And I would hope that we might be able to start discussing and putting together something. Seniors in our community have been, I think, dealing with a lot of issues to confront them, and I think both Tracy and I are impacted on a couple of matters right now. But if in fact I've talked to and discussed with seniors, it seems like they would like to have a greater voice. And I think trying to put together a standing committee to deal with that would be appropriate. And so I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I didn't understand what the motions were.
Is there a second to his motion?
I'm not seconding it.
Well, I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
All right. Is there further discussion? Robin?
Well, if anybody
No,
wants
is
to
it
ask me.
on your motion?
Yeah.
I don't understand what the goal, what is the goal of the committee? I mean, if we have a standing committee, that means there has to be minutes and it has to be public and all things. Is that what you want, or do you want an informal committee to deal with things?
No, actually, I would like to put a committee together that actually has standing on the boards that we appoint as a council.
Can I ask, did we not discuss part of this and it was given to the park board?
Yes, last year when we discussed it, we discussed the fact that we cannot make it a standing committee without going through a lot of formal things that have to be done with that, which I just explained to Hope because she wasn't here for that. And we referred it to the Parks and Recreation Board, and they have not come back to us with anything. And then recently, Ms. Wallach made a motion because Mr. Turner couldn't make his motion because it had not been a year. And again, we did the same thing, referred it back to Parks and Recreation.
Supposed to go in a committee, I thought, to talk about stuff.
Correct, but.
My motion.
Your motion went, right,
Just
but we
supposed to
have
go on
not
a
had
committee, right.
any discussion on it, no. Not from Parks and Recs, where it was originally sent a year ago. And I believe on the back of the committee pending list, Mr. Ferrara also made a motion that he wanted to wait till after the election, and that was a year ago. So,
And that was the election for the,
for the
Rec
rec
center,
center,
yes.
right. So we had 3 different things, all dealing with the seniors, have all been postponed a year. We're now a year into it. We still have the same issue with not being able to make it a standing committee without a lot of formal protocol and deciding what you want to do with the seniors.
Robin, would it not be appropriate to get a hold of John Idoni and find out where they are going with this?
Well, here's the reason I was going at it a little differently. That was, in fact, the motion that was made by Mrs. Long. What I'm talking about is a committee that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Parks and Rec Department. It's one that would have a standing committee to deal with issues that seniors have to confront, and that would assist us in knowing what the concerns of our senior community are, and gives them a kind of permanent voice in trying to put together a issues capability for them and how it's dealt with, and how that's then dealt with. But it would be a committee and not a facility. I have no problem with the facility, but that was the issue with what Melissa, Mrs. Long had actually put forward, was trying to create a linkage for seniors to be able to be in that, what we were doing with the committee at that time on the election of the property and the Parks and Rec Department. But this is different than that. This is actually just a standing committee like we have other standing committees in the city that would enable seniors to put forward exactly what issues they have, and also create a capability for them to be proactive in getting those, their issues discussed.
Okay. Garret?
would it not serve our purpose best to first go to Parks and Rec and request Mr. Idoni to come in and tell us where it is in that process? Just in terms of trying to facilitate and move things along, because I don't,
Well,
would that not help?
actually not.
We're actually getting into a committee now, discussion.
But I have no problem with us putting that in committee for perhaps Bridget to investigate. But the thing I wanted to point out, though, that's different, because I think we've had this discussion before, was Melissa's motion was regarding the facility and how we could perhaps help promote that element with seniors in that discussion, which was one about the new Parks and Rec building. This is not the same, I think, idea on how we do that. This is establishing a committee, doesn't have anything to do with the facility, at least not now. I mean, whatever develops from what would develop from seniors or whatever, or any type of a steering committee that we might establish would then come back to us and be able to let us know exactly what they think or feel that this might do, be able to, assist and facilitate seniors having a greater say in their future and in, their endeavors as seniors in the city of Kent.
John?
Yeah, I'm almost a senior now, as you know, and I'm a little bit confused because
That comes with seniority, I hope.
I know,
No, it just comes with John.
I don't know why a senior organization outside the city itself can't address council with any idea they might have, and without being a governmental group. I mean, I feel that if I have an issue and I could step down outside of council and address council with that issue, and if it's a valid issue, council could act on it. So I don't know why a government-controlled committee or group is necessary, so.
Roger?
Well, I guess I have a couple questions. First of all, Robin, are you thinking that that committee is going to be like our sustainability committee? That committee is going to be like,
Yeah.
is that what you're proposing?
Quasi, yeah.
Okay, so you're not proposing that it's going to be a standing committee on city council?
On city council?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay, I just want to make sure we're all clear what you're talking about.
Could you ask that question?
What's that?
I didn't understand. What was your question just now? What you said?
Well, because when, I wanted to have a clarification to make sure I understood. When you say standing committee, well, we have standing committees on council, but we also have those other committees that aren't standing committees on council, but those committees, like the sustainability committee, what committee does the sustainability committee fall under, is the question. Is it just a standalone out there? Well, I guess I'm asking.
It is.
Okay, so is that what your proposal is?
No, maybe I should quit. Right now, and I probably got ahead of myself, right now, I would hope that we could put that into committee to be investigated so that we know what would probably be appropriate, where that standing would be. And Bridget, I'm sure, geez, Bridget, I'm sorry about that, but I think perhaps putting it into committee for that discussion and us coming back with, I don't want to, advance something that we later on would say, well, we really had an opportunity to do something positive and proactive, but then what Robin said put us on a different type of level and how to deal with that. I would hope that what we would end up doing is discussing it. More perhaps along the lines of what was being said by Tracy, the discussion. My particular measure in how we wanted to deal with it is that we would set up a committee that after having the process vetted thoroughly, that then we could do something and put forward that those requirements to our senior community to see what they think and they feel. Not necessarily with Robin, but I've been getting requests from seniors based on something that's going on right now, which have asked the question of where do we stand in the city of Kent? I mean, who cares about us and where do we see ourselves and where do you see us as a governmental entity? So that's what I'm actually proposing, is just to reignite that discussion. I don't want to put something out there which is first off unnecessary and is not really dealing with issues that confront them that would be the way I see it, but not the way they see it.
Okay. Tracy, do you still understand this motion that you seconded?
I don't really, I think he just wants to talk about things, but to put it in committee, right, and talk about the
Yeah,
senior.
well, I'm going to get to the vote now.
But I, well, no, I want to
We've
ask a
overdone
question.
this.
I guess we could wait till the committee, but I mean, I thought that was kind of a good idea that Roger had. How hard is it to set up something like a sustainability commission or things like that? Is that easier? Is that hard? Because we've done it. I mean, we set up, we
That's a
didn't used to have a
different,
sustainability.
that's different than a standing committee.
Yeah,
That's
we didn't
correct,
used to
much
have a
easier.
sustainability commission. We didn't used to have a shade tree commission. So maybe we could have something like that, a senior, and then the seniors could staff it, and then they could, just like the sustainability, that'd be kind of a neat thing.
Right. However, the last motion made by
Right,
you was to
but that's to
start the
put it in-
discussion, and
in
we
the
haven't even
committee.
gotten that far
Right,
yet,
so
to
we just
have the
wanna-
discussion to talk what
Well, I
about.
just wanted to know that part, to see then if I would support this part. So we're just going to put in a committee now, appropriate committee, and we're going to talk about options. Is that what you want?
Is that an amendment to the motion?
I'm trying to figure out what his motion
You
is.
Well,
actually,
me
would-
too.
wait, you actually wouldn't need the motion for him to create a committee, because Ms. Wallach already put it in
So
to
this
have
would
it
be-
discussed
so this
in
is
one of our
redundant.
current standing
Okay.
committees.
So this is redundant.
It is redundant.
Okay.
No.
All right.
You withdraw?
I still think there's some merit to see what the park board comes back to us, because we basically took it and put it in their hands.
But
So we don't,
Have to vote on them. Have to vote on the motion to.
okay, everybody done. All right, everybody in favor of Mr. Turner's motion?
what exactly is the motion?
Well,
I don't understand it.
it's kind of strung out, I guess.
It's a motion to create a committee for seniors to further discuss their issues that they're
To
having.
create a committee or to put it in the committee to discuss the
His is to
options?
create,
Put it in the
Great.
committee.
his was to create a committee.
That's my understanding.
Well, let's vote.
Roger,
Call the
or
question.
Robin, are you at ease with what you just read?
Hey, I'm at ease with anything that moves us along, that gets the seniors an opportunity to be heard, however that is.
Well, that won't, but that's okay.
All in favor of the motion?
Wait,
that-
Wait, no, wait, the question was called.
Yeah, questions called, no
Oh.
further debate, right.
No further.
No further
You-
discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Anybody else?
I would just, yes, I'd say, I just have to ask the administration to contact Parks and Rec and have them give us an update of where they stand with our direction that we gave them.
Okay. Heidi?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think that there's nothing stopping a committee of seniors from forming a senior organization that would lobby council. And I would encourage that there should be an organization out there that could be created that could come up with issues that are important to seniors that could talk to council about. That would be, you know, what's stopping them?
I don't think you're wrong, Heidi. All right, anything else? Mayor's report, happy Thanksgiving. It's the time of the year to start sharing. If you haven't been sharing, Heidi,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a comment. You didn't say council.
All right.
I do have a comment, and it does relate to this discussion. I visited Massillon today for a meeting, and it was held at their recreation center. And I came out of that recreation center with recreation center envy. First of all, it was crawling with seniors, which was awesome. They had a feature called a lazy river. They did have indoor pool, and they had water slides, and it just looked like the most fun place. It seemed like a thriving community center, and I just want to say I wish that we had something like that in Kent, and I hope that we try again sometime to go for that.
does anybody else have comment? No. Thank you. Mayor's report. Happy Thanksgiving. It's the time of the year to start sharing if you haven't already done. And there's 2-hour free parking on Black Squirrel Friday after Thanksgiving at the meters, 2-hour parking, and also Christmas Eve. So let it be said. We have a motion to go in executive session.
Yes, in accordance with in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, paragraph 121.22, section G, item 1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requests a public hearing.
Please call the roll.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Who all has to be in this executive session? Mike? Hope. I'll give you 5 minutes, Queen, to clear the room.